Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. There's no surefire way to accomplish anything in life, but with each conversation, we aim to delve into diverse topics and present fresh perspectives to empower you, our fellow colleague, on your own journey to success. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joined by a true expert within not just talent acquisition, but the broader aspect of human resources. With a decade of experience spanning various facets of HR, including a significant role in a major transformation project for one of India's largest consumer goods organizations, her career trajectory has been intentionally crafted from her university studies to her current position. Now leading talent attraction for one of the world's first online luxury brands today, she's not only supporting its growth of the organization, but also the individuals within her team. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in welcoming today's guests, the lead talent attraction manager at Mytheresa, Arpita. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Eden, for having me here. Glad to join you in this conversation today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to kind of understand and peel back a little bit more about today's topic about managing more junior teams. But before we do that, I'd like to understand a little bit more about yourself, and more particularly why you do what you do, in the world of talent acquisition and HR.
So I've always been fascinated with numbers, and to me, talent acquisition is one of those rare functions where it's easy to come up with numbers and present to the top management your achievements, because it's very number driven and number specific. At Mytheresa, it's a little different, and it's quite exciting, because if you look at Mytheresa as a company, we do not manufacture anything. Our business at its core is talent. So our employees build relationships with our customers and provide them an unparalleled experience, which helps us in generating revenue. So it's very important in my role to hire people with the right skill set, and that's the core of my mission at Mytheresa. And of course, I like that through my role, I'm able to make an impact to the bottom line of our business. So that's my driving force at Mytheresa at the moment.
Lovely. And as I mentioned, this has been a very intentional career path for yourself, which I really enjoy hearing, because like I said, there's usually kind of two types of people, those who fall in and those who are intentional with this kind of line of work. So what got you interested at the very beginning of your career? Was it still the numbers, or was there kind of a different force for you back then?
So at the beginning, it was a slight combination between venturing into the social sciences space and combining it with numbers somewhere. So I didn't really want to delve into the social work area, but then I chose in the institute that I went to a more specific role, curriculum focused towards HR, and that's where I thought I could use my skills with using numbers and making also an impact in a social space, so to say. So that's what drove me to choose HR at the beginning.
And a career, obviously, in different roles, different functions, but today we're leading, right? So tell me a little bit about how the team is structured at the moment.
Sure. So at Mytheresa, we have an 9-member kind of team, and a part of that team reports into me. We are focused into specific areas of the company where a large part of my team focuses on the digital side of the business, and then there is the other part of the team which focuses on the fashion side of the business. So we always exchange roles, and there is a lot of collaboration happening, but most of my hirings are in the digital space. So I'm hiring all kinds, and since we are an e-commerce company, we do quite a significant number of digital hirings across different kind of skill sets. So I'm either hiring for digital marketing profiles or technology profiles. I also sometimes support the corporate and business functions, me and my team. And then at that time, we are hiring for the finance people in the company or the HR folks within the company. So that's the kind of different roles and levels that we as a team look into at Mytheresa. And the fashion side of the business, it's quite interesting, because we are hiring for people who are specialists in styling,
Mm.
photography, digital merchandising. So very different kind of roles also there. So it's a very healthy mix, and it keeps us on our toes most of the time, because the profiles can be very different, and the attraction points for all these talents that we talk to is very different when it comes to them engaging with Mytheresa.
That was actually going to be my follow-up, because when you speak to a traditional technical company, you might cover design, product, tech, but obviously with Mytheresa and your team, you're doing two sides and two entirely different groups of people to try and attract and to kind of understand and share insights with. So how does that, I guess, then come back to you as the leader of that team? How are we going through the motions of kind of upskilling that team?
So if you are talking very specifically about the talent acquisition team, it's very interesting, because when we have people joining us, when they join us as a junior team member, they probably come straight out of college, so they do not really have an experience in this industry. But for them at that point of time, the driving force is working in a fashion company, quite understandably so. But once they are here, for them to understand the variety of role that the company hires for seems at just at the beginning seems very difficult for them. But it's in my as a team lead, it's my job to kind of smoothly assimilate them into the role, make sure they acclimatize to the requirements that the job has, and it's very important in the initial stages to coach them, to nurture them, to educate them about the requirements and the different portfolios, the different departments the company has. In fact, one of the first things that I do as part of the onboarding is to take people through the different teams that there exist and ask them to just go through the different roles that exist within that team, to get an understanding of how they are structured, what do these people sort of do. And it's very important for me to also, when talking to them, give them the job description, to first have their understanding and present their understanding about the role that they probably would be working on, and then kind of coach them and make them aware about what is it that the company is actually expecting from this individual. So it's a kind of a mix and a kind of a balance. A lot of coaching and nurturing is required at the beginning, and then of course you allow the junior team members to fly and achieve better things in the company.
How often do you kind of bring in junior members into the team compared to more experienced members?
In the last couple of years, we have had 3 people who have joined as junior team members into the team. A lot of times we do hire mid-level people who have 2 to 3 years of experience, which is also not a lot, and therefore you need to kind of coach them as well quite a bit. But if you're talking about people with zero experience, it's been like 2 to 3 people that we have hired in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it takes its I don't want to say that. I'm going to use the phrase toll, but not in a bad way, because it's just a lot of time.
Investment. It's a lot of time investment.
You've got a better way of phrasing it than me, but absolutely. So you can't bring on too many. There needs to be that balance. Now, before we jumped online, you actually used the phrase elastic band when we're kind of looking at these more junior team members, and I guess we could kind of look at all of team members as this element, but for this scope. So explain to the people that are listening, what do you mean by elastic band?
Sure. So I've always thought of my junior team members as elastic bands, or rubber bands, as some of us call it. The thing is, once you stretch an elastic band, it can never go back to its original shape. So my ambition has always been to coach my team members to kind of learn, stretch, and grow. So the idea has always been that the first step that I take with junior team members is to kind of help them to create a learning mindset, a hunger to perform, and never settle for ordinary. Because if you have team members, if you do take these steps, it will help your team members to become exceptional performers and tomorrow, and possibly be the leaders of tomorrow. So that's been the motto with which I have worked with all my junior team members.
So the aspect is obviously helping them grow and then continue kind of nurturing them. How do you know when is the right time to kind of stretch someone in comparison to just giving them time to nurture that, something that you've already taught them?
Sure. So I would say that when you have a junior team member, in at the initial stage, it's a kind of a blank slate for them. So they are also kind of trying to understand, trying to see, make impressions, build a reputation within the company. So at that point of time, they are trying once they are trying to start out in their journey. It's important to be calm and give them their space and the time they require to settle into the company. In the initial stages, I often don't do much with the junior team members. It's giving them the opportunity to settle is very important. So the initial couple of months, I just keep talking to them, ask them to read stuff, just try and do the basics at the beginning. So I wouldn't even expect them to do screening CVs because that's an evolved skill. I would expect them to initially just do the administration stuff, which is basically scheduling interviews, just talking to the candidates and telling them that, hey, that you have an interview coming up. So just doing the basic stuff. First 2-3 months should just be doing the basic stuff. And then even during this time, you have to invest a lot of time coaching them, trying to explain them through about the processes. I also allow a lot of them to kind of shadow me during the interview so that they get a hang of how interviews are conducted, and I allow them to be there as many times as they would want to. And once they are comfortable is when, just because they are starting out, it's very important for them to have a structure around how to go about doing it. So I encourage them to build a screening questionnaire. So if they're going to do an HR screening, I ask them to build a screening questionnaire. I don't expect them to go impromptu in interviews because the candidates are scared and the interviewer is scared, then you have a very difficult problem to solve. So it's very important for the interviewer at least to be very confident to present the company. So I ask them to be a little structured at the beginning, when they are starting out with interviews, to have a questionnaire with them, just so that they can see through if they need to during the interview process. And of course, the interview should flow, but there also needs to be a little bit of structure, and you should know what are the important points to cover. And as a junior member, it's often one tends to kind of miss out on certain things. So if it's important to have that structure, and once they get a hang of doing that, I would then encourage them to leave the questionnaire behind. It's fine if you have it. If you don't have it, it's still fine. Go into the interview and have a free-flowing conversation. And during all these times, there's tremendous amount of coaching that is provided to all these members so that they can flourish in these roles. And often you would find they will kind of flounder and have obstacles, and it's important to support them as well during these obstacles. So make sure, if they've had a difficult candidate to deal with, or if they have if they do not understand the position at all, sit with them, spend the time with them, just to give them that that idea and that encouragement and the support that they need at that point of time. Because most of these junior team members have the skill, but probably lack confidence, and that is what you want to give them to make sure that they flourish and prosper in the roles that they have.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in that last statement there. They have the skill, they lack the confidence. I see that quite often. From running teams myself and speaking to members internally. What you mentioned, going back just a little bit about that screening document, that questionnaire, who creates that? Is it something that you would proactively give them and say, look, this is what we do? Or were you saying, Eden, you've just joined our team, I would like you to create this. What do you think needs to go in it?
So, of course, so the first thing I would ask them to do it for the position. So it will also help them to read the position, understand more about the position, and then come up with the questions. Also, it's an opportunity to interact with the hiring managers, just to get a deeper insight into the role. And then, of course, once they come up with the questions, we discuss, and then we settle which are the important ones, and then finalize it. But it always has to come from the person. It cannot come from me, because then there is no learning happening, and it's very important to learn these things.
That's what I was trying to understand is, are we telling or are we showing? Telling it, or are we giving them the opportunity to show us, and then we coach? So there's obviously that fine line between giving you a resource to utilize, but also giving you the support to learn it in your own time. So you kind of go, try it. I'm here to help. Then we'll finalize together.
True. Okay. Exactly. That's the way to go about it.
And I also want to go back even further. I made a note of this. So you mentioned obviously about creating that learning aspect, right? So trying to encourage, obviously learning from day one. How do you go about? And I'm not even talking about even when they start. I'm talking about the initial hiring phase, because you're building this team yourself, and you might inherit some people, but generally once you're leading a team, you'll go and hire people for yourself. How do you even identify in that initial hiring phase the people that you believe are going to be open to learning, are going to have that kind of growth mindset? What's kind of your approach?
Sure. So in most cases, what I do during the interviews is ask them questions, and mostly about about situations where these people probably could not deliver what they were expected to, and then see what was the reaction when that happened. So some of it is, most of the time the candidates will tell you, yes, there was this challenge, and this is what I should have done. But the thing is, it's important to understand what to give them the opportunity to elaborate upon what I should have done. Once you hear the answers, you kind of get an idea, is the person a reactive sort of a person, or is the person actively looking at finding solutions? And that is where you kind of can get a sense of, does the person have a learning mindset or not. Most of these questions that I ask are based on the STAR methodology, which all of us know. Yes. So just to clarify, it's basically asking them to narrate a situation, the task they had, the actions, and the results. And once they are telling me, once they reached at the point of result, if the result was an unsuccessful one, try and ask them once again, if you were to approach this problem once again, how would you go about doing it? If the person has a learning mindset, he or she would have thought about it, and would have put in some ideas as to how he or she would have done it differently. And
so that's the elaboration part.
Yes, and that is where you kind of find out more about, does the person have a learning mindset? Does the person want to improve on what he or she currently is at? And that is where you kind of get a sense during the interviews. And then once, of course, the person joins, it's very important, I believe, to create a learning development plan for especially the junior team members, because it is important to help them and you as a company map out the skills that he or she needs to attain. And of course, then evaluate progress for all the skills that you have kind of highlighted and want the person to achieve. Because if you don't set up, I could have a goal about the person achieving XYZ by the end of the year. But if I don't have a concrete plan in place, how is the person going to know what he or she needs to do? Because of course, this person is a junior team member, tends to be more task oriented, and you need to put a structure in place to help this person flourish and give the right aids to this person to grow and learn more.
I like the sorry, just before we go on to the learning aspect of the environment, I do like the kind of elaboration. It's actually that's actually probably the first time someone's kind of brought it out like that. And I'm thinking now we should probably be teaching STAR-E, just slap an E on the end, because the elaboration, you're absolutely right. That's the learning aspect. I think everyone now understands, okay, the results. But if you can proactively, I guess, find out what was to learn by asking them to elaborate, or if a candidate could do that automatically, that's going to help you as a hiring manager really determine, is this the sort of match for us? That's a really, really good insight. With the learning aspect, you're incredibly right. We have to create goals, but we have to create a place that allows for that to happen, and we also need to identify the right skills. So with junior teams, when they are such a blank slate, how, as a manager, can you determine what the right skills are for that individual? I mean, what are you basing it on?
So when I hire a junior team member, the kind of skills that I would want the person to develop is something which is very well articulated within Mytheresa's leadership skills and the skills the values that the company has. And I would want the person to kind of build his or her skill set around these values and the leadership skills that the company has. So maybe I would take the leadership skill or the value that one of the values that the company has, and then bring it down to smaller, finer points, just to make it more actionable for the person, so that the person knows the tasks that will help him or her to outshine or kind of put a spotlight on this leadership skill, saying that, hey, I have achieved it now. So make sure that if it's just a sentence, one kind of narrows it down and brings it down to actionables for these people, because they will not be able to do it on their own. So one has to sit down with them, explain what the value or the skill means, and then put in actionables. And that's how you kind of create this mindset for the people.
And are you doing that from the day they start, or are you doing that once you've got a couple of weeks or a month of worth of awareness of who they are, where their skills lie today?
Yes. It's a lot of give and take that happens, because I might want the person to develop on ABC skill set, but the person's interest areas might be a little different and might want to focus on XYZ. And it's a lot of exchange that happens, and this is an exchange one does of course during the first couple of months.
Yeah.
And then you finalize what is it that I would want the person to develop on, work on, and become an expert on in the growing in the coming few years.
I think that's probably actually where a lot of people, if they're really honest with themselves, probably fall down, where they maybe expect a bit too much, especially from junior members, too quickly, and they don't give themselves the time just to observe. Because you might hire me as somebody who's never done recruitment, for example, and I might take very, very well to the administrative tasks and the calling very, very quickly. And, you might have a agenda for me, but it doesn't marry up with where I am today. And then you have to really think and change things over. But I think it's about going in more open as a manager to say, okay, I don't know where we are yet. Let's evaluate, and then let's make the plan together.
I agree. It's very important for a manager to be open to these conversations. It's, as I said, it's an exchange between the manager and the junior team member to kind of understand what he or she is looking for doing or developing within the company. And then you provide the person with the right kind of tasks, the skills that are required, and make a roadmap for the person, so that the person can show and that he or she has delivered something by the end of the year, and therefore has credit to there is a credit for the person.
And similarly, these goals that are being created, who's the driver behind them? You as the manager, or should they be driven by where the employee feels they need support on?
So the goals are always done in consultation with between the manager and the junior team member. It cannot be driven by me or by him or her. It has to be a conversation, and not just one conversation, but several conversations where you exchange ideas, where you try and figure out what is it that you want the person to do, and the person will tell you what he or she is interested in, and keep on constantly talking to each other, trying to understand. Of course, there is a company objective that is tied to it. It cannot just be a person's objective, but a company objective. And then you try and align the company's objective with the person's personal objectives and marry them together to make sure that not just the person is benefiting, but the company as well.
Nice. And you touched upon, obviously, a little bit about the environment already, but it's about creating an environment where everyone can obviously feel that they're able to contribute and they're able to learn around it. And that is ultimately driven by the culture of the business. It's, set up from the very first day that the company's created. But as a manager, you also create the culture of your team. You create subcultures in many cases. So how can you go about creating such an environment where ideas are encouraged and can be shared?
So one of the most important thing to bear in mind in these situations is that there is never a wrong answer. So there is always any kind of point of view will add to the discussion. That's an important thing that every manager should have, and that is where you go with when you're talking to the junior team members. You have to encourage them, give them the confidence, which is very important when somebody is starting out, that your ideas, your experience, your thoughts are appreciated. So it's very important to learn to listen to all of everything that they want to share very empathetically, and understand and provide and express confidence in their abilities when they are trying to share their point of view. And always remember, at the back of your head, there is never a wrong answer. It's always a point of view, and just listen to the point of view and then come up with, if at all you disagree to the point of view, one must have reasons for disagreeing. It just cannot be just because you're a junior team member, I don't want to listen.
I think that's a very short, quick way to get somebody to stop talking if they think that they're too junior. I know I've said the word confidence earlier in this conversation already, but I do try to remove confidence when speaking to more junior members as well, because I think the moment you tell someone you lack confidence, it's game over to some degree, because they're always going to think, well, I'm not confident. I've seen it time and time again. I think it's about reframing, the idea that, okay, you just don't know this yet. Let's learn it. Let's grow that knowledge, not grow the confidence, because everyone is confident when they know something, and it's just about that kind of growth of the knowledge. You obviously, as a leader, are building your team through the hard times, right? And we're talking about resilience, and juniors especially, especially in talent acquisition, you don't always know that this is what you want to be doing. So there is a high turnover for some junior teams, because they realize actually it's not what they expected, or it's not what they envisioned this role to be. How can you as a leader start building that resilience very early on with the team members?
Definitely. So it's what you said is very interesting, because a lot of junior team members, as we've been discussing during this podcast, lack the confidence sometimes, and one has to empower them. It's very important as a manager to, let's say, if they are struggling with something, to be very empathetic and listen to them very clearly, and validate their feelings. It often happens that they have their reservations, they have their challenges. It's important to acknowledge these challenges and then express confidence in their abilities. Now, there will be situations where one might end up struggling, one might have challenges, but how do you it's very difficult at the time of kind of interviewing to find people and identify if this person is resilient or not. But then you can, of course, ask questions to just kind of get an idea if this person has an ability to bounce back from setbacks. And then okay, this person, while has skills that I need, the attitude that I need, probably will need support on these areas. And then you work on these areas right from day one of hiring these people. And that is where they will get the confidence, that they will know that the manager is here to support me and is not here to admonish me for things that have gone wrong, because there will be things that will go wrong, and it's fine. It goes wrong at everybody's level, so it's fine, and nobody is 100%, and one has to acknowledge that human beings make error, and that's fine. But you have to be empathetic in these situations and give them the confidence that they need when they are very low, and help. And that is when they see the support, and that is when the bond between a manager and a junior team member is also built. And that's the opportunity for creating these close-knit teams, is what I feel. And as we always say, that Nobody leaves the company for anything else but managers, and these are those important junctures where you kind of can help these junior team members who are still kind of deciding what they want to do and might not be stable, but when they see support, when they see the nurturing, the care, that will be a very big positive for them to stay back into the company and be with the manager, because they know they will learn here, grow here, and will most importantly have the support that they require.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and that phrase you said about, the bond between the employee and the manager is created in those tough times. The moment you said that, I almost had like a flashback of a little bit about my career. I've messed up many times, and I can hold my hand up and say that, and it makes you a better manager, of course, by understanding that. But there's definitely people that I've failed and let down, because during those times, the stress and the pressure comes to you, and you react in a completely way, or you react in a way you shouldn't. It's about, you're absolutely right, it's at all levels that kind of make those mistakes. So yeah, that's a powerful take on it, because you're absolutely right. Once that's happened, the bond is never the same, and it's difficult to get that back. Resilience is I think internal and external recruiters have kind of a different mindset to resilience to some degree. Obviously, we get told no 99% of the time. So obviously, what you're building is resilience, but in a kind of a different way. But I think everyone also has those experiences, you say, like down times, but negative thoughts where you don't feel like you're good enough. You maybe have a good run, then a bad run, and you don't know what's happening or whatever. It's just a negative environment. But it definitely still happens, at all levels, but more so when you're learning something brand new. So when a new team member comes in, how can you as a leader help reframe what is happening? Maybe not away from the negative, because I think, we shouldn't just sugarcoat things, but we still need to acknowledge that. But how can you reframe that person's mindset away from negative to a learn?
Sure. So when junior employees, more specifically, have a negative experience, the problem tends to be that they tend to beat themselves up. Their self-criticism is often very loud, and basically what it does is tanks their confidence and sometimes maybe their job performance as well. So it's important to figure out, to help your employees figure out what choices they can make to navigate future situations differently, rather than just sugarcoating things and being just nice to them. Help them, make them understand how they have done it differently to avoid the situation that they are in. And that is not admonishing them, but just coaching them. And as a manager, it's important to coach junior team members, because this is the first time that probably it would have happened with them, and maybe as a manager it has happened to you several times. So you've learned and grown through these experiences, and then you share that how do you come out of this and do it differently the next time, not to have not have a situation like you have had now.
And do you do that immediately in that situation? You strike while the fire is hot, so to speak, or do you wait until you have a formalized review with that person, be it quarterly or monthly?
No, I don't tend to wait for very long. I do have catch-ups with my team members on a weekly basis, but if a situation has happened, I kind of tell them, so through Slack messages and stuff like this, the instant messaging service that we have within the company, I tend to reach out to them to say, hey, it's okay, let's discuss it separately, just to make sure that they are calm about it and I'm not dwelling over it beyond the end of office hours. So once the office is over, they should stop dwelling over it and just tell them to relax. It happens, it's fine, and we can discuss it the next days. But at that very moment, it's important to tell them, you have my support. I understand what you've gone through.
So it's fine. You're just acknowledging this happened. We deal with it tomorrow, later on today, whatever, but it's happened. I'm aware. Relax.
It's fine. Just relax. We'll manage the situation, but let's relax. I always tell everybody in my team that whatever you do, it cannot collapse the company the same moment. So it's fine. If it hasn't collapsed the company, we are still good. So calm down. Doesn't matter. It's fine. We can come out of it, and it's fine to relax at that very moment.
That's a good outlook. I like that. I might start taking it. With the with obviously your experience, you've been leading teams for a long time. you've got a lot of experience to kind of fall back on. What advice would you give to somebody who is maybe at the beginning of their own leadership journey? I also find it very difficult, by the way, because I had this when you just step into a leading role, taking on more senior members than yourself. That's a completely different discussion to be had, different mindset for kind of approach. But let's say they're taking on junior members. What advice would you share?
One of the most important thing that I would share to any new manager would be to expand their thinking and kind of learn to embrace different viewpoints, because here you are managing a team now, and of course a team is more than one person, so you will have different points of view that will come through during each discussion you have. Learn to embrace these different point of views and develop a habit to look at a problem from different dimensions, and these are the different dimensions are the ones that will be provided by your team members. So use that to your advantage, as an opportunity to gain more experience, gain more skills. Also, what tends to happen is when one becomes a manager, from an operational point of view, the work kind of reduces a bit and you become more strategic, and your touch point with the operational tasks within the company kind of reduces a little bit, and you can be sometimes not in tune with what is happening at the ground level. And these are the people who will provide, your team members who are at a mid-level or a junior level are the ones who will provide you with these viewpoints and these perspectives. And sometimes some of these are real eye-openers. You just didn't know, okay, this kind of thing also happens. And that's a learning, that's an experience that and a learning that you will not get elsewhere. So use that to your benefit and develop yourself more and more. So never discourage viewpoints is how I would tell any new manager when they are starting their journey as a manager. Never discourage viewpoints. It's important to encourage them, in fact.
I love that, because juniors have such a wealth of knowledge, and the beauty of their wealth of knowledge is that it's not restricted by things that they've been told in the past. You can't approach someone like that. That's not how we do it. They're just, as you say, a blank canvas at the beginning, and they come up with these incredible ideas that they've taken from maybe different industries, different roles, and you can then see how they can mix into what you do. And it's about having that openness. And then, as we've rightfully said, don't discourage it. Create the environment where that continues to allow that. And then, even though they're 3, 4, 5 years on in the future, they should hopefully still have the freshness of ideas that kind of you start off with. And with that, Arpita, I really appreciate you taking the time. I think it's a great end, a great learn to have on the end of this podcast. So thank you so much for all the insights. There's a lot to unpack in everything. Hopefully, obviously, things for either new managers or existing managers can kind of take away. I think it's also important to mention that although we're talking about juniors in this instance, that elastic band or rubber band analogy, and then that kind of the whole process could be adapted to every single person in your team, and should be. But I really enjoyed that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Eden. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for the questions that you posed.
All right.